Some good things coming up, isn't there? There he is. It's good to see you all here today. Great to see you. Thanks, Mike. How about we thank Michael? He's done a great job. No background music for prayer and fasting, hey? We're going into a time of solitude. No. Who enjoys prayer and fasting? Are there people out there who actually enjoy it? Oh, you're good people. Other people are like, oh, it's hard, right? But I tell you what, isn't it good? It is so good to have a devoted time. And why not kick off 2021, your year, with prayers sown in to God and see Him outwork them in the year to come, right? That's what I'm excited about. 21 days. Why 21 days? Google it later. I'm not going to go into that, but it's 21 days. Last week I talked about why we fast. So if you were here last week, you were inspired and now you're feeling committed, right? You were so built up, the why behind this. Today I'm going to talk about how you fast. I'm just going to spend about 5 minutes on this and then I'm bringing you a vision message. Who likes a bit of vision? Who likes some vision cast? I'm excited about this one. I think this is our best vision message ever. Okay, I've really built that up. Trevor Sharp, it is good to see you and your wife here today. Why don't we give them a clap if you know Trevor? Past member of our body since its beginning, right? You were here from the very start, the Holy Rolling Days. Yes, it's good to see you guys. Really nice. Great to have our guests as well. Some visitors in the house. Lovely to have you here with us. Good place to be on a Sunday. So I ask you to consider asking the Lord, what should I fast? What food am I going to deprive myself of? Because I think we can make our own decisions on this one, or we can ask God, and often I feel like He challenges us probably further than we go ourselves. And you know what? It's got to cost you something. It's got to be a little bit of a challenge in there. We were sitting around the kitchen table, and I've got a salad, and Ethan's like, Mum, I've decided what I'm going to give up and fast. He's like, it's tomatoes. Ethan doesn't like tomatoes. And I said, well, Ethan, if you're going to give up tomatoes, you should enjoy one from my plate right now. You know, just savor them. Because don't you do that before a fast? You eat all the good stuff that you love because you're like, I'm not going to have this for 21 days. Anyway, I do. So I gave him my tomato and I'm like, you better eat it now because you're going to fast this and, you know, make the most of this moment. He like picks it up and he walks towards the bin and he literally puts it in his mouth and gags it into the bin. So I said, maybe not tomatoes. He's like, yeah, no, you're right. That's an easy one to give up things that you don't enjoy. I'm going to challenge you to give up something you love because I think that's where God really meets us when we partner in prayer with fasting. What are you believing for, church? Do you need a healing in your body? Do you want to pray on behalf of someone else's healing? Stand in the gap. Maybe there's someone in your life that you would like to see saved or reconnect back to the Father. Maybe there's someone dear to you that you can put to God in prayer for 3 weeks and see God move. Maybe you need an answer from the Lord. Maybe you need some purpose, some direction, what to do next. A miracle, these are all various things that you can ask for. Now, I know that you can put these different prayers to God because in the word of the Lord, it talks about many different people that fasted. The Israelites faced battles and they fasted and prayed and they saw God's victory and they won. I hope you're not in war right now, in a battle, and that's your need for prayer. Hannah wanted a child and she was barren for many years and she cried and she prayed. But it was only when she partnered with fasting that breakthrough happened for her life. There is something significant, church, about partnering fasting with prayer. If you haven't done this before, then I'm excited for you because you get to commit to this and ask God, what am I to give up? And what am I believing for? And hear from the Lord and press in and put your focus on God. Now, I'm a believer that fasting is food related, that it actually is giving up some form of food because that's how it was done in the Word, right? Some people give up social media, Facebook, Netflix maybe, I don't know, gaming. I'm not sure what other people spend time in. And those things are good if you want to give up something that devotes a lot of time, because in that time you can replace it with God time, with time in prayer and having less distractions in your 3 weeks. But I do encourage to give up some form of food that you love because I believe in that. This is why godly prayers partnered with fasting releases a supernatural power. I believe this. Who believes this? I've seen it outworked in the Word of God. I've seen this when I've committed to this. And this is something annually we do as Highway Church every year. And I always love to see what God has in store and the miracles that come out of this time. So get ready, church. The cool thing about God is He is God of the breakthrough, isn't He? In my word, it says that He parted waters. He healed the sick. He released the captive. He brought the dead to life. God is the God of the breakthrough. This is the God that we're putting our focus on for 3 weeks. Amazing, right? Get ready, because God can respond and God loves you, and your heart's desires, He wants to lean in and hear what you have to say. So I encourage, ask God, what am I to fast and what am I believing for? These are some options. People like to do different things, and I think it's very personal to you. What you know is right for you to give up. One is what I call a partial fast. That might be giving up certain items. It might be sugar for your sweet tooth addicts. It might be giving up any other drinks but water. There might be coffee involved for some. Some give up a meal, whether it's breakfast, lunch, or tea. I recommend still eat breakfast because they say that's the most important meal of the day. So give up lunch or dinner. No, really, you can do it however you want. There's another one called the Daniel fast. I like this one. I encourage you to Google it. There is recipes out there. There are all the foods to eat. It's basically fruit and vegetable, no meat, some grains, and drinking water. And this is the one that we see Daniel in the Word of God use in his life. And I'm going to unpack that one later in the message today. The Daniel fast. There is also the full fast. This is eating no food at all, but just drinking water. This is one Moses did, and Jesus, and he was God's son, so he was miraculous and able. But I encourage with this one, please feel called to this one. I do encourage to consider your limits and your health and all those things. So while these are all options for you, please step out wisely. Should I share about my... No, I shouldn't. I did like a fasting fail. Do you want to hear my fasting fail? Yes, okay. Matt will tell me off later. You shouldn't say those things. I went out a few years ago to do the 21-day fast, and I love coffee. Like, who loves coffee? Right? You understand me. So every day I don't talk until I've had coffee, right? That's my go-to. I'm like, now I'm alive. Okay. So I had this thought in my life. This was years ago, okay? Not last year. And I thought I could give up all food and just drink coffee, or I could give up coffee and drink and eat whatever. I decided to stick with coffee. I know, right? There's a in the room. I just thought I'll give up food because I love coffee that much. I thought 3 times a day I can sit down and drink my coffee, which I love more than food itself. And so I did this. About 11 days in, I was very faint. I was not good, was I? I was kind of laid up, feeling very crook. And I decided right then I'm going to introduce some other things into this fast because this is not healthy. So do not recommend the coffee fast. Heads up, please don't. It's not healthy. It's not well. But like I said, the full fast, if you feel called to that, then submit, obey, go with what God has for you. I encourage the Daniel fast is a good one, but really, it's personal. It's what God puts on your heart. Be obedient in that, and God will meet your needs. Amen? So be wise in what you fast. And very quickly, Jesus fasted so we can follow his example. Why do we do this? It says in the Word that fasting is for all believers, all disciples. We see Moses. He received the 10 Commandments when? During a fast. Esther got a strategy from God to save the Jews. When? During a fast. Hannah fasted and God heard her plea and she received the baby she wanted. Judah, Ezra, the people of Nineveh, Nehemiah, David and Anna all fasted. This is throughout scriptures. Paul fasted when God called him to take the gospel to the Gentiles. There's some examples of fasting, and they're all mighty people, aren't they? And God did mighty things, so let's expect the same. What are you waiting on? What are you needing from God? It said in the Word, and I read this scripture last week, that some breakthroughs only happen when we partner it with fasting. So if there's a breakthrough, something you want God to respond in your life, then I encourage partner it with fasting and see God move. Who's keen now? Yes, more nods. That's good. Fantastic. Chat to us after the service. Send any questions you have to Pastor Matt, and we look forward to doing this as a corporate church together. God's going to move. And can I quickly remind, don't just do the fast, okay? Because without prayer, it's called a diet, okay? It's called gut health. It's healthy eating. It's a Christian diet if you want to make it more spiritual. But please pray, devote time every day. We've got a heap of prayer meetings. Come to what you can. Can I encourage, even if you come to one of those prayer meetings in the next 3 weeks, be committed to seeing God move. Amen? Amen. Why don't we have a quick meet and greet? Go and say hi to someone, say g'day to someone across the road, stand up and stretch. That'll get everyone moving. There we go. Say hi, and then we'll launch into this word.
Everything else can wait. I've come to seek your face, so everything else can wait. I'm here for you. I want to just be here at your feet. Just be here on my knees, here in your presence. I am complete. Jesus, you're all that I need. There's nothing I want more, 'cause nothing matters more. There's nothing I want more, 'cause nothing matters more. No, there's nothing I want more than you. 'Cause nothing matters more. No, there's nothing I want more. No, 'cause nothing matters more. I'll just be here at your feet. Just be here on my knees, here in your presence. I am complete. Jesus, you're all that I need. Oh, I'll just be here at your feet. Just be here on my knees, oh, here in your presence. I am complete. Jesus, you're all that I need. Jesus, you're all that I need. Oh, Jesus, you're all that I need.
Hi. If you'd like to go back to your seat, you can catch up later. We're a chatty bunch. Natalie Austin, just give us a little wave. This is Natalie and her daughter. These guys have been not able to cross the border for a long time. They've joined the church before the lockdown, and then we went into COVID season, so it is so good. Can we give them a clap and make them feel welcome? It was a difficult year, but I felt like we were still connected. It was so lovely, the messages, the calls you had from people. You're still a part of this family, so it's just really nice to have people gather back in the flesh, isn't it? Really nice. Great. Who's keen for the vision message? Yes. Oh, I love the excitement in the house. So good. So good. Pastor Matt and I were both praying about our church and 2021 and what God had for this place. Because I don't know about you, but I don't want to look back anymore. I'm ready to look forward. I'm ready to see what's ahead. I'm ready to get you inspired today, church. And this is a real message that I feel like it's going to kick off our fast, and it's really going to be outworked that we're going to preach into in the next couple of weeks and throughout this year. This is a launching pad, church. So I'm grateful that you are here this morning to hear this. I'm going to be turning to Daniel, the book of Daniel, in a moment. This is a man, one man, Daniel. And God used this one man through what this key we believe is for our church today. Through this characteristic, God used him to bring a revival to his nation. God used him to live his life in such a way that God delivered him in the den. Do you remember the story? The lion's den? God brought him through a testing to that place. But it was right there in the midst of the hardship, in the midst of the battle, in the midst of almost dying, where he was willing to hold on to God even in that place and make a stand for what was right, what was true to him. And God used him. He delivered him. And the king, the leader at the time, was like, people, you need to follow this God, the God of Daniel. It brought those people back to worshiping the true God. What a revivalist, right? Do you want to know what this key is? Are you ready, church? This key, the uncompromising life in a compromising world. Let me unpack that. Uncompromising, that word right there, it means unyielding, inflexible, making no concessions. Didn't Daniel live an uncompromised life? He made a stand. He made a choice. You know, the king of the day of Babylon, he wanted to include the Jews in their culture. He wanted to immerse them in. In fact, he wanted to control them. He wanted to make sure the Jews, because they were so large in magnitude, kind of kept their place. So what he did is he picked out a number of young teenagers. Any 14 and 15-year-olds in the house today? Hands up. Peter, you lifted your hand up. You're not that young. Caleb, are you 14, 15? Could you stand up for me, Caleb? Oh, I always pick on people. This guy right here, I want you to picture Daniel at this age. This is how young he was. Thank you. You can sit down. You can thank me later. So Daniel, at 14 or 15 years old, was handpicked by God. Why? Because he had all the traits that were great about him. He was educated. Some were from royalty. Some were noble families. And they gathered these guys, and in 3 years, they wanted to prepare them ready to meet the king. And in those 3 years, they were going to immerse them in their culture, educate them in the Chaldean education of the day. They wanted to kind of change them to become leaders, to speak to the Jews, to, in a sense, be in control, right? So Daniel is this one man, one kid, who was called by God in that moment. And he chose. His name was changed. They changed his name. They changed the education and the culture and what he was being immersed in. But there was one thing that he was willing to make a stand on, and that was the lifestyle. You see, he didn't let what they were going to put on him defile him. There were some foods that they were going to be given to eat. You can eat this off the king's table. These nice foods, this wine, you're the elite here. You're the young guns that get trained in the temple. You get to participate in all that the king gets to eat. But you know, he was a Jew. And he stood on what was true to him. And he knew there were certain meats he couldn't eat. And so rather than even saying, responding with, oh, I've got some allergies, thanks for offering me all the food, but I can't eat certain meats and I can't eat certain grains. And you know what? Just give me vegetables and water. I'll be good to go. He didn't say or blame it on food conditions. He said, I can't eat this stuff because it will defile me, because it will take me off course what God has for my life. He uncompromised. He wasn't willing to just slip into the culture and the lifestyle that they were trying to put on him. Daniel lived in a day very much like we are. We have government saying, wear a mask, don't wear a mask, stand at this distance, go into lockdown. There's kind of a lot of government rule there, right? That's the culture we're in because of the times. Daniel, in his day, they said, don't bow down to any other god or you die. We haven't had that spoken out yet, so that's something. We're in good days here. But that was what the life he was in. He was immersed in a culture where following God, which was all that he was challenged. But he didn't slip into the lifestyle. I've got a picture here today. Who likes illustrations? I do. Thank you, Mark, for your response. This water represents culture. This represents the world. This represents the Babylonian, Chaldean ways. And here we've got Daniel. I know it's a green food colouring. It doesn't really, not a little person, but just stay with me, okay? We've got Daniel here. What we seem to see, we're inspiring you today to be uncompromised for Jesus, being all in, being unyielded, not distracting, not going off course, not defiling ourselves, but saying, no, that might be the culture, but I'm going to make a stand to say no because I am not going to defile my God. I'm going to live my whole life for him, even if it takes me to death. Even if that's the cost, even if that's the test that's to come. So we have Daniel here in a world where, and what happens is I see there's Christians and they're living a certain life. And what happens is when the culture immerses someone, it's like it waters down your faith. It waters down your Christianity. If we allow this to dictate us, what happens is we allow the culture to define who we are. We allow the world to set in motion the way that we're going to live our life. It's one chip at a time, one little decision at a time, and we go, well, I don't want the cost of the lion's den. I don't want to be different. I'm here with a group of young lads, and me and my 3 friends, we really want to be true Jews and be all in. So what happens is Christians, people, you and I, we choose to let the culture dictate how we live, which should be kingdom culture. And it waters down a believer. I know people that stand true for something. And even unsaved, even people that don't believe in the same thing, they respect that you're making a stand for something. But what I'm seeing is that the culture is taking over. It's setting the precedence. Go into our ways, just eat off the table. Who cares? A little bit of wine, a little bit of meat. What does it matter? I know that's what you believe and that's your God thing, but in order to fit in, just join in. Just be a part of things. But you see, this is what I felt God show me. If this is us, if this is Daniel, this is an uncompromised life. This is what one person, Daniel, was able to do in his life. This is very dangerous. Working with food colouring on carpet, Peter's like, don't you dare spill that today. If this is us, and if the culture were to take over us, it influences us and waters down our faith. But if we change the culture, we change the culture. We can choose to let it affect us, or we can affect it. Daniel was one person, guys, one person. The lid's going on. We're all good. Don't touch that, anybody. This here, one person in a big pool of water in comparison, he believed in God. He was uncompromising. He lived his life all in for the Lord. And what happens? God delivers him in a den. The king recognizes God's mighty power in that moment and recognizes, you know what, that golden idol out there, that's dead. This God's alive and living. And they were turned back to the Lord through one man. Just think what your life could do if you didn't fall into the ways of the world, but choose to make a stand in your life. The impact of one person. What does uncompromising look like? Virtue, holiness, godliness, purity, obedience to God, faithfulness. You know, we can all set out with high morals and high values in life, ideals, but it's only when it's tested that it gets difficult. It's only in that place when the testing comes. And some people don't like the testing, and so they kind of fall in to whatever that thing might be that tempts you. We can even rationalize our compromise and say, well, and don't we see that around the world today? People see the Bible and they kind of pick and choose the scriptures they want to stand on. God is all this, everything. You know, we can set New Year's resolutions. Can I ask anyone that's set a New Year's resolution and hasn't fulfilled it and pulled out at some point? One honest person, 2, 3, lots of people. You know why? Because we set a goal. We set goals. We want goals as people, right? We want to set a value, a dream, the ideal, okay? And what happens is it gets tested. Whether it's healthy eating or going walking every day, we get tired. We want to eat that thing. We're at someone's house and they've served it to us. Whatever the things that take us off course, it gets tested, and it's in the testing. That's where we need to stay true to what God has for our life. Amen? These are people who didn't compromise. Moses before Pharaoh, David many times, Paul before Felix, Festus and Agrippa, and one mighty man, Daniel. Let's turn to the book of Daniel, church. Chapter 1. There we go. He didn't let the culture influence him. He changed the culture. Amen. We are living in an ungodly world, church, and we can be the light here. We can be Jesus to the people. Amen. By unwilling to compromise the absolutes that we believe in. You know, he had a conviction on the inside. I think that's where it starts, having a conviction that this is who God is, this is what he asks of me to live my life, and I want to devote myself to that kind of lifestyle. It starts within us. The Babylonians can change his name, they can change his beliefs, but they didn't change his lifestyle. The same way in our life, some things we aren't affected by, but there's some things we need to stand on and be true to. 1 verse 8 it reads, "But Daniel determined in his heart that he would not defile himself by eating his portion of the king's rich and dainty food, or by drinking the wine which he drank. Therefore he requested as the chief of the eunuchs that he might be allowed not to defile himself. Now God made Daniel to find favor, compassion, and loving kindness with the chief of the eunuchs. And the chief of the eunuchs said to Daniel, I fear lest my lord the king, who has appointed your food and your drink, should see your faces worse looking or more sad than the other youths of your age. Then you would endanger my head with the king." Then said Daniel to the steward, whom the chief of the eunuchs had set over Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, "Prove your servants, I beseech you, for 10 days, and let us be given a vegetable diet and water to drink." The key here is boldness. He had boldness to go to the chief and say, "Hey, thanks for all this divine food offer, but I want to not defile myself and walk in the ways of God. I want to stay true to what is within me." This takes boldness, people. To live an uncompromised life, it takes boldness to be set apart, to stand apart, to be different, right? Read on. Then let our appearance and the appearance of the youths who eat of the king's rich dainties be observed and compared by you, and deal with us, your servants, according to what you see. So the man consented to them in this matter and proved them 10 days. And at the end of 10 days, it was seen that they were looking better and had taken on more flesh than all the youths who ate of the king's rich dainties. So the steward took away their rich dainties and the wine they were to drink and gave them vegetables. As for these 4 youths, God gave them knowledge. This is the blessing that comes right here. This is what came because they uncompromised. You see, there is blessing that comes to your life. It's not just testing. There is a lot of great blessing that is downloaded from heaven when we choose to be obedient to Him, right? God gave them knowledge and skill in all learning and wisdom. And Daniel had understanding in all kinds of visions and dreams. And verse 19, and the king conversed with them, and among them none was found like Daniel and his 3 mates. Therefore, they were assigned to stand before the king, and all matters of wisdom and understanding concerning which the king asked them, he found them 10 times better. 10 times better than the other guys because they chose to eat this way and follow what God had on their life. What could come of our lives? The blessings, the abundance, the favor when we follow in the ways of God, right? Oh, thank you. You didn't want me to drink the green water? How kind. Thank you. I just spilt that down my face in front of 100 people. Nice. There we go. Thank you. Very kind. You might think, well, why didn't he take the food? Surely he could have eaten it. You know, these foods in these days were often brought before idols before they were given to these men. So in a sense, you're eating idolatrous food. You know, it wasn't just food back then. It was significant, the stand he was making in this moment. It wasn't just eating meat. It was making a stand for walking a life with the Lord. There were foods there that the Jews couldn't eat. You know, I feel like, church, we need to draw the line. Let's just say this line here, the edge of this stage, the black line here. I got this picture. We need to draw the line. We need to make a stand to say, this is my line and I'm not going to cross over. I'm not going to defile myself. Those things that are unholy in my life, I'm not going to step over. I'm not going to be things that compromise what God has for my life. The ways that He talks about in the Word of God, that He calls us to. This kind of life, those things that aren't of God, we're not going to go there anymore. But you see, what I found is that people go right up to the line. They have good intention, like a New Year's resolution. They're all set. And they stand very close to the line. But I really felt like God wants us to put fences in. Fences between us and the cliff. Boundaries, choices, decisions we make, our lifestyle. If that thing to cross the line will take us down, then maybe we need to put some things in motion that will keep us wide away from crossing that line. How to be uncompromised, church? We've got to stop crossing over into the world's ways. We've got to start making a stand for the culture of heaven, for God's ways, immersed in our life, and not even bring ourselves to that border, bring ourselves to that cliff face, right? That is uncompromised. And I really feel that the Holy Spirit's going to start to speak to you about things in your life that we have compromised and how we can come back and put some things in place to say, God, I am all in. Who wants to be all in for 2021? I do. I want this for our church and our lives. Because the power of one man in Daniel, what can he do in a whole church of people? Uncompromised, all in, 100% devoted to God's ways that He has for us. It takes boldness, church. It takes conviction. It takes persistence, commitment, choice. This is what it takes from us. This is our responsibility. This is our part to play. But the result is there is blessing. God gave him great wisdom. He gave him the ability to interpret a dream that the king had, that the king didn't even tell him the details of. What did he do? He went and fasted and prayed, and God gave him that same dream. Then he was able to interpret it before the king. All these magicians and all these magic people of the kings couldn't do this, but Daniel could, because he was 10 times better, because he was not defiled, because he was living an uncompromised life. God moved through him. Do you know he was in work or ministry, if you want to call it that, for 70 years, outworking God's gifting in his life. God instilled this in a young boy. And for 70 years, God used him to interpret dreams, to stand for the Lord, to pray with open windows when he was told, you can't pray. There was nothing to hide. There was nothing. He was open, very vulnerable. There was nothing that could have been exposed in him. In fact, that the men around him who were jealous were trying to find some characteristics in him that he could cause fault for, and there was nothing. So the only thing they pinpointed on him was, well, he prays to another god. So if that happens, king, how about you make a rule that those people get thrown into the den, that they're to die because they're not bowing down to the idols that you have in store. What's interesting is that through these interpreting of dreams, through these walking in God's calling and the giftings he had on his life, what happens is God positions him in a province. He rules a province of Babylon. Do you know, in that province, in that very place, is where they put up a gold idol. That was where they built it, in the very area that he was governing, right? Very contradictory to who he was. And it's interesting that often things come in our life, in our realm, close to home, things that come up that challenge us. Might happen within your family, at work. These things come up in our life, close to home, and it's like a test to say, God, I'm just going to remain true to you. I'm going to stay faithful. I'm going to keep my heart right in those moments. Because the testing does come. And some people see the test. They see the den, the lion's den, the place that you might go to if you live this kind of life. And that can put people off. They're like, well, I see the cost involved in living that way. I don't know if I want to be unpopular. I don't know if I want to be different. I don't know if I want people to know this is who I am. Whatever your reason, if it's attached to fear, if bitterness is holding you back, if something is keeping you because you're looking at that thing and that's the thing that's hindering you, if there's a test that's scaring you, can I just assure you with this? It's when God brings you into a place of testing that your greatest miracles are outworked. And his presence is there in the midst. You see, if he didn't go in the den, the people wouldn't have seen the miracle that was outworked. And you can read the story yourselves of how God shut the mouths of lions. Has anyone seen that at the zoo? Lions' mouths shut. Anyone? No, because they roar, right? They were built to, and they were hungry. They were starved lions. God brought a miracle here that saved his life because he mattered. He was living uncompromised for God, and God was going to save him. It was in the den, it was in the testing that God outworked his greatest miracle and brought the whole nation, the whole province, people that were distracted and focused on an idol were no longer, because the king directed, this is the God that you will serve, that you will worship. I might have Mike come up. People like it when I call up Mike, don't they? They're like, okay, great, it's coming to a close. I used to when I was a kid anyway. Let's call the band up. Excellent, it's time for lunch. Has any adult thought that today? Any honest people? Uncompromised life is being honest. Kane, thank you. I see that hand. It's good. Good to be honest, right? Yes. You know, fear can stop us living this life. The flesh can stop us living uncompromised. But ultimately, it's disobedience to God, isn't it? It's God's way or ours. It's the flesh or it's him. It's the culture of the world or it's the kingdom. His ways. Daniel had a courageous refusal to compromise. It brought him to a den of lions, but God delivered him there. He was positioned in high government eventually. He became a PM. He was a prime minister of the day. God brought him to the highest level. When we choose to live our life at the highest level, God promotes, God blesses, God brings back all the things that your heart desires. I believe that. I believe it. Who believes that? Yes. Revival came. One man, one brave person changed a nation. Revival is an instance of something becoming active or important again. Like an unsaved, we call them unsaved, someone without Jesus in their life. They might feel dead without a hope in their world. But revival is when that deadness comes back to life. There's an awakening. There's a bringing back to God, to our true love. I want people in our town to be revived. I want people that have drifted away from the Lord to come back to Him. Who wants that? And I think it takes us living that kind of life to impact the other people. Sometimes we have to count the cost. We have to make the stand for other people to see God's miracle working power on our lives. And it's only in walking out day by day a commitment to Him, an all-in spirit, unyielded, unabandoned, all for Jesus, that other people can come back to the Lord through our testimony. I like to go off my notes and then I reg back and see everything I missed. He refused to yield to pressure or conformity. I don't know about you, but it was harder as a teenager to want to be conformed to people around you. I don't know if you hit 30 and you're just like, whatever, I don't care anymore. This is where I'm at. This is who I am. And you just be you. But I encourage, whatever age you are, there's still moments where it's nice to fit in, right? It's nice to be like the majority. And it's in those decisions we make where we say, no, I'm following God's ways here. Whatever that decision, whatever that word you say, whatever the action, living for Him. I believe what we put in will get out. If He was halfway in, there might have been half the blessing or half the outcome. But He was 100% devoted, as we see. Church, be all in, be different, be courageous. Set the culture around your world. God will exalt you. It says in chapter 9:14, we won't turn there, the Lord our God is uncompromisingly righteous. This is a characteristic of who God is that we can choose to outwork in our lives. Who wants this life? I want blessing from God. I want Him to gift me with things that will challenge and help and love on others. I want to see people come back to Jesus. Why don't we stand, church? I think I gave you an easy gig today, Tiana. Was that one scripture we put up? Yeah. Can I encourage you, read the book of Daniel. It's good. There's lots of moments in there where his 3 friends, they made a stand for God, and where did it take them? In a fiery furnace with fire, hot enough to kill the men that were actually putting ash? The wood in, putting the people in, their job, that person. They died from the heat. They went into it, right? And God was there amongst them and saved them. They went into a testing. And even to that moment of you will die by doing this, they said, well, if God wants to save us, He will. And if He doesn't, that's okay. Because God was not worth turning His back on for their life. That's when you're all in, when you're willing to sacrifice yourself for Him. Big commitment. What's hindering and holding you back? The uncompromising life in a compromising world. I think this is it, church. I really feel as we launch into fast, as we look at our year ahead, this here, I feel like this is the key to revival, because we see this in Daniel. This is a key that will change your world around you. I believe this. If we just do our part, we can't take on other people's lifestyles and choices, but we can be responsible for me, right? We can live this way. Virtue, holiness, godliness, purity, obedience to God, faithful, courageous, and bold. Let's make choices to stand for Him. Amen.